What can you tell us about the deal?
Good morning, Kevin. Great to be back with you. It's a very important deal, historic deal. It's one of the largest deals ever struck by OPEC Plus members to reduce production all across the world. And the reason it's important is that with the demand being what it is, given the COVID-19 pandemic shutting down world economies, it's important that we not overproduce oil right at the moment. We're running into challenges, as you may know. The production of oil, once you've produced it and pulled it out of the ground, you've got two options. You can either use it or you can store it. And with demand being what it is, using it is not an option, so storage is becoming a premium. So it's important that we slow the production for a time until this economy comes back.
You know, I think it's interesting, just given that you mentioned COVID-19, but when you juxtapose that with the Saudis and the Russians, how precisely did this deal come about, and how long is this deal going to last for?
Well, the deal came about because world leaders engaged directly and personally. The president was personally involved with this conversation from the very beginning and really drove home the final results that you're seeing today. The COVID-19 presents a challenge for all producers. So Saudi, the Russians, the United States, be it conventional or unconventional shale production, are all impacted by the reduction in demand as a result of the pandemic. So everyone has an interest in ensuring. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead and finish.
I was going to say everyone has an interest in ensuring that the energy business comes back post-pandemic. And the way you do that is to ensure that the wells are today not shut in permanently. So you reduce the production, you moderate the production of oil, try and match it to demand to the best you can. And in America, that's done through free markets. In cartels like OPEC, it's done through mandates and through collective action.
So here domestically, as you know this, Secretary, I mean, so many independent refineries are nervous about going bankrupt, particularly given what's happening with COVID, what's happening internationally. What's the administration doing, Secretary Brouillette, to ensure that once the COVID-19 restrictions are lifted and given the demand flow what it is, that these refineries are not going to have to seek bankruptcy protections?
Mm-hmm. So we've taken some very aggressive steps. The president has directed me to open up the Strategic Petroleum Reserve and make that storage available to the industry here in America, the domestic producing industry here in America. Importantly, however, the president has also worked with the Congress to pass, what you now know as the CARES Act. And within that act are some very important provisions. Perhaps one of the most important is allowing this industry to deduct losses that are incurred this year against the last 5 years of profits. So that provides an incredible amount of liquidity to these smaller players in particular, and again, shores up those balance sheets, shores up their financial situation so that they can survive this downturn in demand.
So the president has talked about going beyond the existing capacity to look at more storage options. What are some of those options that your team is looking at, especially for those refineries not by the Gulf states?
Mm-hmm. So the federal law allows the Department of Energy to develop up to 1 billion barrels of storage. We're currently at around 700 million or so. That's the capacity of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. So I'll be working closely with Congress to check interest on perhaps expanding that storage capacity. We're also going to look at commercial options and see what we might have available there as well.
So with working with Congress, do you anticipate that maybe, Secretary Brouillette, that portion might be tied into the next round of economic stimulus, or will that have to move in a separate congressional vehicle?
Well, we'll make the argument. I think it's something that the Congress should consider. They will, of course, make the ultimate decision as to whether or not they want to pursue that. But we're going to make some, I think, very strong and credible arguments why additional storage capacity is important to the country.
So beyond that, in terms of where things move, do you expect that the U.S. production declines to be from market force-based, or what do you expect, rather, the U.S. production declines to be from market-based reductions?
Yeah, they're entirely going to be market-based reductions. I mean, as we talked about earlier, with the downturn in demand, we're seeing the production fall off fairly rapidly. Our own EIA, or Energy Information Administration, predicts somewhere between 1.6 and perhaps as high as 2 million barrels per day coming off the market as a result of demand destruction. But I've seen estimates from very esteemed economists, Dan Yergin, IHS Markit, others, who've suggested that number may be even higher, perhaps as much as 2.9 million barrels per day.
How united, or really, how is this going to be divided between Mexico and Canada and the United States? How will that be evenly distributed in the international community?
Well, we've worked closely with our Canadian partners. Seamus O'Regan is the energy minister there. He and I have been in constant contact, as the minister down in Mexico, Minister Nale, and I have talked repeatedly. Now, Mexico is an OPEC Plus member, so their reductions are going to come as their participation in OPEC. For Canada, there are some provinces that have some additional authorities to perhaps reduce reduction on its own. But for the most part, these are going to be market-based, market-driven, demand-driven reductions coming out of the United States, as well as perhaps Canada.
Secretary Brouillette, just one final question for you. What's your message to refinery workers, to drillers all around the country who are wanting to get back to work, who want to get back to their jobs, to their livelihoods, and are feeling a lot of economic anxiety at this particular moment? What do you want to say to them?
Well, two important points. I think, this industry underpins perhaps the entire American economy. So stay strong. It was the strength of this industry that allowed this president to deal from a position of strength, to negotiate from a position of strength. And this thing is about to turn around. I feel very optimistic that within a few short moments, we're going to be turning this economy back on. And, these jobs are going to stay here, and they're going to be stronger than ever.